existed. This did more for me than any therapist was ever able to do, as it pertains to breaking down walls. So all these things are coming back, and I didn't know what to do with them. I wasn't really a big study on meditation. I understood what it was, but my belief at the time, and because I had access to an unlimited supply of this stuff, I just wanted to keep going back to it. So I got into it became habitual to where eventually I had to break that, but I kept going back to it.
Were you addicted?
And, I would say for that period of time, it was something that, I don't know, see, it's not, there's no physical thing to it because when it's done, it's done. But psychologically.
The escape is always the escape.
But that's the thing, though. That's the weird thing is I think towards the end it got to be escapism, but I was really running towards something that I didn't know how to access on this side. And
accessing it on this side is hard.
Extremely difficult. Even now. And and I know, we know how to get there. But getting to the place that automatically took me, it's not impossible. I get there, sometimes in the float tank. But if my instincts are good, I'll kick in the water and all of a sudden I'm out of it and I'm like, oh, that was scary,
I haven't done any hallucinogens since 2001. I think the last time I took some liquid acid and, I was living in Royal Oak, and there was a bunch of us at this house, and I remember they were watching Meet Joe Black, and the first scene where he gets hit by the car, I just started laughing hysterically, and I couldn't stop laughing for like 20 minutes, and I can't say there was anything very spiritual about that particular time, but I did a lot of hallucinogens in high school, which, a lot of us do, and probably did too much here and there. And then I moved out to Colorado, and I used psilocybin and I used acid to just get in tune with a lot of spirituality type stuff and break away a lot of things that society has molded me to believe, which is absolute bullshit. I needed something to help me break these things. A lot of them were beliefs. A lot of them were just the idea when people believe that their value on the earth is more than another human being's, and all that judgmental shit, I used hallucinogens to break a lot of that. And I was young at the time. I was probably 19, 20, 21. And, Terrence McKenna was around Colorado where I was at when I was living there. And being around him and being around, a lot of his students and stuff, he was always at Naropa and Boulder. And their whole thing was to understand what hallucinogenics do and are, and how to change the reality that you live in, not through just tripping, but that you're not going to be able to see what the conscious mind sees and the subconscious mind all the time. And to have the breakthroughs that you need, Terrence was always he always was a big fan of microdosing and stuff, but he always believed in a major reset. And the major reset was 4 grams of psilocybin and go trip hard, get the reset that you need to do what you got to do, come back, and you're reset. He was a big believer of DMT and a lot of different other things. And the molecules of the hallucinogenics and stuff and the breakthroughs he thought were way more beneficial for the spiritual being inside of us, to help us connect on a different level and in different dimensions.
I
You know,
agree.
like I can see other dimensions of myself and what I'm connecting with on different levels through the use of hallucinogenics.
And that's the key thing is that, so I was still very much in my ego, still very much controlled by my ego. The ego still exists, right? I'll be dualistic until the day I die. And I'll hit these peak experiences to where I get to sit in the space of nirvana, of oneness, and actually feel it and inhabit it. But then I'm going to come back to my physical self. When I had the ketamine experience, I was still very much controlled by the ego. So the ego has this belief in science, and I still believe in it. I'm not saying I don't believe in science, but medical science. And I was convinced that I couldn't slow my thoughts down. I didn't believe that meditation could actually get me there. So I would continue to go back to the ketamine. And I just didn't want to deal with the information that I had been given. When the breakthroughs happened, I really didn't know how to cope with what I had been shown.
You didn't journal or nothing?
Oh, I journaled, yeah. But I was confused. Like it was so much at once
Yeah.
that I just really, like quantum physics was almost addictive to me too. So I just kept reading and reading. I remember one night I read a Michio Kaku book 3 times over, and then I would sleep with The Secret on loop or What to Believe. That's what I was exposed to back at the time. But
You smoking weed too when you were doing this?
no, it was just that. It was
Just ketamine?
Just me and ketamine, quantum physics, and my son. And so the difference, you have to be real intentional about what you would
Yeah.
like to derive
Setting an intention before you do this is a spiritual part of what you're doing.
or else you get confused after
Yeah.
the fact, because it's not so much the substance, right? It's what it provides for you. So years later, when I did it's called changa. It's herb infused ayahuasca, and it lasts a little bit longer than just the DMT crystals when you smoke it. Intense, man, intense. And when I did it, extremely spiritual, right? And I was looking to gain something from the experience. And what I realized in the DMT experience, that because of where I had grown spiritually in my physical self, that I didn't realize back then, is that really the only thing it did is that it exposed the other side. So the DMT experience was probably more real than anything I've ever experienced here on the physical plane, except for the unconditional love that I feel for my children. That's the only thing I can compare it to. And once you have that knowledge, you can't go back. So with DMT, after I experienced it, there's really no reason to do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I sat in the space, and I remember seeing the tree of life that we see all the time, those geometric patterns. I was pulsating. I was one with that tree of life, and I remember going in and out, in and out, in and out, and scared the shit out of me when I started to come back into my body. So I remember I was with my cousin, and I started talking to my cousin, and it was me talking, but I wasn't in my body yet. So I'm just mimicking what it felt like to be just this consciousness, kind of looking around to see where the voice is coming from. And then it was weird, not scary. It was so peaceful and beautiful. My cousin, he's an ex-gangbanger, tattoos on his neck. He's laughing like a child right next to me because he had just went to this space too. But he's also on a spiritual path. And then I remember reaching, going like this, and it's like somebody's arms were reaching around me. I wasn't. And then atom by atom, I started feeling myself coming back into the body. And me and him looked at each other. I'm like, let's go watch some Joe Rogan, talk about some. And so we went and watched this one episode where he's talking to him. I can't remember the bodybuilder's name, but how he went spiritual and how he learned to, when he would start coming out of the deep part of the DMT trip, he would start doing meditative breathing. So I was like, let's go try that. So went back in, and then sure enough, as you start feeling yourself inhabit your body again, I would do the meditative breathing, then I could teleport into what felt like a cliff that I was sitting on, but I wasn't really sitting because there was no body. I was just engulfed in this light. And it was such a real thing, more real than this. Like I had pierced through the lie, and I think that's what psychedelics do. And if therapists are allowed to use it in a helpful way, if you can get somebody to that breakthrough to where I can't deny
How
that.
much DMT did you smoke?
Wasn't much, man. It
Was
was
one hit, two hit, or like
two hits, and then went back in, two more hits. It took 2 hits, went to that space, and it was immediate. There's no stopping it either. So once you do it, there's no stopping it. You're in it, and then you're along. You got to go for the ride.
I talked to a couple people. They're like, it's like a 10-minute trip, but it's like it feels like hours.
It's timeless. You know, it's timeless. Time dissipates. The physical reality dissipates, and if somebody seeking help can feel that,
Yeah.
you come out of it and you just know that, what the fuck am I so afraid of? You know, you feel this thing we say is God. Me, and again, I'm on that path, right? So I may be biased in my experience, but it connects to so many other people's experience that talk about it in a deep way. Now, I do think that had I done it 10 years prior, it might have just been fun. Like, oh man, that was trippy. You know what I mean? And oh man, I was going back into my body. I don't think I would have thought about it the same way when I came back into the physical realm, right?
I've talked to a lot of people that have done DMT, and a lot of the experiences vary. You know, some talk about the breakthrough and breaking through and talking to different entities and stuff, and all sorts of different kinds of experiences while doing it. But they all say it's pretty wild, you know.
I think I've been broke through for a long time. I think what this allowed for me, so we read about it, right? I write about it all the time. I've experienced it lightly with ketamine, but the DMT thing, in the space that I inhabit now, the DMT thing, it allowed me, I can't deny it. I think there's the subconscious doubt in us that because we're taught that the physical realm is it, and you live, you die, and so that's still very much buried in the amygdala, along with all the other garbage. So I think subconsciously, there's parts of me that want to deny that, not consciously. Consciously, I believe it. What this allowed for was for me to sit in that space and to come back to this space and know that it's the truth. And I think that's what the Buddhist monks have on lock when they sit up in the mountains of Tibet and they meditate for 10 hours a day and they talk about this space of nirvana. I think that's what they have on lock. And then when you come back from that to this space, all you want to do is bring it back with you. How can I implement this into my
Doesn't work
daily
that
life?
way though.
No, it doesn't.
Not supposed to.
What I think you can.
Not in America.
Well, I'm not even. I'm just talking about what it gave me is an individual sense of responsibility. In that, not that I could change or affect anybody else, but that I could definitely change this and the way that I respond to things that happen outside of me. That has to change. Like that's kind of what I came back with is I just went to Auschwitz, right?
Right.
And so that was heavy. It was heavy with the kids, and to stand in that space where that type of horror, and that's not to say it happens here too in America in bits and pieces, and seems more prevalent now than it's ever been. But to stand in that space where Viktor Frankl was, and then came out and wrote Man's Search for Meaning and invented logotherapy, coming back to the place where traffic is a problem. It's a genuine problem for us, and we get pissed. And I go back to all and it's not only psychedelic. I've been in therapy for years and years and years and years and years, and I've been working hard trying to get it right in whatever way that is. But it really brought me back to those psychedelic experiences to where it's like, why, if I know that this is the truth, why am I not acting like it? Why does traffic still get to me? Why do I catch myself motherfucking?
It's the day-to-day grind.
And I get it. I know.
I can't be just tripping all the time. You know, when I lived in Colorado, I thought I would go up to Chautauqua Park. Like I would take a couple of hits of like some Grateful Dead White on White, and I would take
I
my
don't even know
little
what that is.
acid,
Is that
you
what
know,
it is?
and then I would go walk up to Chautauqua Park, go like for a little hike around the mountains, and then I would just look at the stars. And I would look at the stars for hours. And I would just let my mind do what my mind does. Just go as far out as you want to. And it was incredibly peaceful, you know, just a real chill time. And I would do this a lot. Like, these ski bums sold me a couple books of this shit right when I got to Colorado. And they were letting it go for like a super great deal because, you know, they work at Breckenridge and they need money. And, you know, so the, you know, typical hippie dudes. And I was like, shit, fuck, why not, you know? And a lot of it was interesting because when I was using psychedelics more often, alcoholism wasn't as bad, you know, and like a lot of my behavior, a lot of my criminal behavior was modified. It was a lot lower. I started to like the one love.
Yeah, you started giving.
Yeah, ideology, you know, came into play, and that we're all connected, and that everyone on the planet has a purpose. Yeah, but the thing is, when I'm constantly around people who are grinding in their day-to-day life,
and that's what it is. That's life.
That's
what it's
right.
supposed to be.
That don't give a shit, that are only concerned about themselves and where I got to be in 5 or 10 or 15 minutes. Get the fuck out of my way. You're in my way. You know, cut lines and at the grocery store and do the rest of the shit and bitch about everything. When I see that, like, I have more empathy for them because they're in the grind, but there's still a piece of me that is like, yeah, or like someone needs to put some fucking LSD in their drink, you know, like,
you know what?
You never know, you know. I'm not saying anything, but it's a struggle to watch people struggle.
It is,
you know, and I'm not saying that I don't struggle. To tell you the truth, the struggle isn't real.
It feels real.
It does feel real. It's only real if you give it power.
Right.
People want to give it power because their ego wants everyone else to look how much I'm grinding. Look how hard I'm struggling. Look at what I'm overcoming. Look at me. Look at me. When in reality, if you don't give any of that power, if you don't give the struggle power, if you're not seeking attention for your overcoming circumstances and you are just doing it.
Or being a victim.
Right. You are just doing it. You don't have to let everyone know what you're doing. But your success will come quicker. Your momentum will be faster. Your God flow will work more with you when you stop letting everyone else know what your struggle is, what you're grinding, how many jobs you got. All the things that define you, all the culture that you allow yourself to define you, all those things hold you back. They are spiritual blocks.
I can say with the psychedelic experience at psychedelic doses in ketamine, that's the first time I remember it does induce an out-of-body experience. Absolutely induces out-of-body experiences on multiple occasions. I've had them also almost dying, but still nothing as beautiful as when I intentionally went there, you know, but the one thing that you can't deny is that feeling of oneness that you were talking about, that all the labels dissipate immediately. And I remember I was looking at myself. Standing at the kitchen table next to my son's high chair. I believe he was taking a nap at the time. And I remember stepping outside of my body and I just saying, "You're an asshole." And it wasn't in a mean way either. But after that, I really, and it's not so much the experience itself, it's what you take out into the world from it. So what I took out into the world from that was I need to evaluate myself. Now, in retrospect, had therapists from the time I was in group camps from 15 years old been trying to teach me that that's what I needed to do? Absolutely. And now the things that they were saying in terms of therapy, they started to make sense. Oh, I am controlling. Oh, I am codependent. And that didn't all flood in immediately. I was still very resistant to the fact that I was that flawed. But it started it. It started the chain reaction. And yeah, I could have and I often did run back to the ketamine experience because it was beautiful there. And out here it was all work, right? Well, you know what I mean?
You ever notice, like, when you are in the world, you can just tell people, you can tell who people that work on themselves are.
You can't,
You
now
know,
especially.
Yeah, like, I
magnet
mean,
for it.
yeah, exactly. Like, you can tell who works on themselves
Mhm.
and tries to better themselves than other people who just don't give a shit and is gonna roll with it and like
Takes a
code-
5-minute conversation.
Yeah,
Julie.
just you know.
You
You
know-
know that they don't give a shit about anything, codependency, whatever the problem is, they just don't. It one track mind,
Yeah,
and it's all about me
yeah.
and my control and what can I get, because my selfishness and self-seeking is the root of who I am.
Yeah. You know what's funny is I would catch myself because you can tell, and my radar is good now for that. And it's not
That's
even
like
intentional,
fucking.
but I know. But I got tricked a couple times.
Oh, you always get tricked.
And ex-girlfriends, they were great salespeople. They would see the things I posted, see what I was striving for to be better, and they would speak that language. And and then the ego would kick in and be like, "Well, she's pretty. Go ahead and believe that." There's a couple times I got tricked, and those were necessary steps for me also to see that there's still very much of that ego in there that's going to make those bad decisions. But now it's almost immediate. You just know. You just know if somebody's selling you a line of bullshit. And then there's some people, like you said, that just don't care. They're just in their own head, and that's how they're going to be.
All for one, one for all. I'll fuck you over to get what I need and to get what I want, and I really don't care if you get hurt or whatnot.
Well, they don't say that.
No, they won't say that, but that's the consciousness that they're operating from.
And it's predominant in American
It
society.
is very predominant.
That's why I believe that they have, with what ketamine did for me, even without a physician present. I read a book and I took it like it said to take it. Lo and behold, the experience was had. If that could be in controlled environments, it would solve so many of the problems, because you were right in saying that, well, there's no, I remember, because I was still heavy on the party scene.
So maybe we should go drop it in the Nestle aquifer that's bottling all the
That water,
water and just dump
something.
like
But I think you have to
a couple
know.
100-gallon, like 200 million gallons of fucking ketamine in that shit.
I think the emergency rooms would fill up because people would think they were dying because you have that out about. But
Ice Mountain fucked me up.
it's true. I mean, now Ice Mountain's getting sued, or it becomes a church.
Yeah,
Yeah, one of the. It's
I'm going nonprofit.
I think it should be legal. I think it should be controlled. I find it real hard to believe, with all the studies that have been done, that the government isn't privy to this information. I do believe that Big Pharma is behind, because what you said was right. There's no desire. What I was saying was I was still very much a part of the party scene, to where it was probably back then an every weekend thing. We were going to the club, we were having a party, we were doing something, and that was gone. I didn't want to drink, and I didn't drink anything. Didn't have any desire to go mingle in any superficial relationships. I wanted quantum physics. I wanted to be connected with my son, and I just wanted to contemplate. Have you ever had a party night where you're just smashed off alcohol and all you want to do is contemplate the existence of the universe and what your meaning is in it. That's never happened to me, not on alcohol.
Maybe when I was blacked out, but you know, most indigenous people refer to all of it as medicine.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's how they treat it. And the spiritual aspect of all of it is that I use the medicine with intention to free me from whatever is ailing me, whether
It has
it
to be
be,
intentional.
you know, some form of anxiety, mental illness, you know, mental health disorder. It could just be for a simple reset. It could be because I've damaged my brain due to alcoholism and an addiction.
Fear.
That some of my neurons in my brain need to be stimulated again. And psilocybin has been known to do that. And people are using it to treat depression for recovering addicts and alcoholics. And I'm not saying that people in recovery go out and get some mushrooms and start tripping.
No.
I'm just saying do the research behind what we're saying and, you know, allow yourself the possibility of like less chemical based life, you know. I mean, I think that's the fear of big pharma and the government is if the population starts to learn on how they can heal themselves without doctors,
on their own,
how much power that they really have and how much power is in the earth, that they don't really need us. Like the form of control and the rules of the game, like Terrence said, are going to change. And that's the last thing that the government wants is
less billions.
300 million people realizing that the game is rigged and that the rules are skewed and now we're no longer playing the game. We're going to like turn the table.
According to your rules, they're done.
Right.
There's going to be a spiritual revolution. And I don't know that spiritual revolution has to be violent. That's the thing, and I do think that the powers that be, if they even think that deeply, are scared of that because it's really we stop with the consumerism. That's it. Stop consuming the bullshit.
I'm so glad you brought this up. This is great. I always thought the best way to start a revolution is you would have to do it for 2 economic quarters, but you would have to get people to not buy a fucking thing. Like, be happy with your TV, be happy with the car you're driving. Like, don't buy any major appliances. And you're going to have to know that that's going to probably hurt some people's jobs and stuff. But to withstand the blow and it's like making a statement, you know, you have to allow those in power or whatever you want to call it, what they believe, who really has the power. The people have always had the power, but we're caught in such a systematic 9-to-5 in-debt society where it's like all I care about is if I got enough left over to go out this weekend. That's not living. That's not living. That's indentured servitude.
The only problem with that is that we're still going to be buying gas, still going to be purchasing electricity. That's why they shut Tesla down. You know, anybody that comes in, we have access to all this power. We need that revolution. I don't know how that revolution happens, but the consumerism on every angle has to stop. It's exactly what you said, and then some. How do we all get off the grid? And this is the kind of things that going into the psychedelic experience or the meditative experience, I think recovery is I think it's a psychedelic experience. You know, it's to a lighter degree.
Spiritual awakening.
It's definitely a spiritual awakening, but you have to inhabit that space in order to stay recovering. You have to stay in that space.
Right, and a lot of us get complacent after a while. You know, I mean, Bill W. was using LSD for a long part of his recovery to treat his depression, and they were using it with sponsees and stuff to help them with their depression and to kind of have a catalyst for a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening. You know,
And for those who don't know, Bill W.
Yeah, the founder of Alcoholics Anonymous, co-founder. So, these things have gone back a long time. And it's interesting because I've known people in recovery who have used psilocybin to break through depression and different forms of isolation, things that they needed. They treated it as medicine, they used it as medicine, but I'll tell you one thing, they'll never say that they fucking did it in the rooms of AA because you'll be outcasted in a minute.
You know, Russell Brand, he speaks real intelligently about this subject, and again, disclaimer: nobody's saying go experience these things, especially if you're at the crisis phase of recovery.
New in recovery.
Right, because Russell Brand, he's 14 years clean, and I love everything that he writes and his perspective. And he, I watched an interview with him and Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
And Joe Rogan asked him, he says, "Well, do you think that could lead you down a path?" He said, I do, because I'm always looking for an angle."
Right.
Well,
I'm always looking for an escape.
Right, right. And if you're looking for that angle, and that is the danger, is that if the intention isn't right and you don't have the proper guidance and you find this space that's beautiful and takes all the problems away, you just want to keep going back to that space,
Yeah.
and that's not sustainable at all.
Joe was kind of like letting him know that it's real hard to get addicted to like DMT. Like
Physically, you're not going to.
You're not really going to get addicted to DMT. It's like just too.
You only have to do it once.
Extreme,
Right?
To be living
You can't
on a DMT,
and your brain
Right.
can only release so much. So
Right.
at a certain point, it's just whatever I'm doing is not doing anything. But on the flip side, I understand Russell Brand's fear, and at least he was honest with himself, because some people won't be, especially in early recovery.
Well, we talked about it today in the group. The clinician was like, what my fear about psilocybin is that I'll pick up weed.
Gateway kind of thing. Yeah.
So for most of us who are in recovery, like that have relapsed, weed was always one of the triggers. I relapsed back in 2011. I almost had 6 years of continuous sobriety. There was a lot of stuff that went on for me to go back out. But my first thing was, and I was growing weed at the time, was I'm going to kick back and I need some relief. That was a big thing. So I started smoking weed, and for a few days it was cool, and I really wasn't like puffing a lot of weed. It was like half a joint when I got home at night and watched South Park, and I would giggle a little bit and think it was cool and this is funny. Within 2 weeks, I was back buying like a fifth of vodka or a fifth of whiskey a day. Just like that. Boom. Because the weed hits the same part of the brain that the alcohol does. And I'm always going to go back, excuse me, I'm always going to go back to what I want when those types of substances are put into my system. If I smoke weed, you might as well just give me the whiskey. And if you're going to give me the whiskey, you might as well just hand me a loaded gun, because I'll be dead probably relatively soon. It's really only by the grace of God that I'm sitting in the chair today. So the clinician was like, that's what my fear is. And I don't relate to that fear, because, you would, I was like, you would have to plan. Like, if you were to, say, this is my intention, is to go out into the woods and use the psilocybin as medicine to help me do what I needed to do, you'd have to do some planning to make sure you brought the weed along and do all that other bullshit. Because most people that I've known in recovery that have done this go out into the woods, and it's kind of like you just go out into the woods and handle your business.
Mm-hmm.
It's you and God time.
Right.
To figure out
and that's very intentional.
What the breakthrough needs to be. I need to look at myself and see what I can't see.
Show me something.
Yeah.
Here's the veil. Here's the veil.
Consistent form.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting, because it was a real sensitive subject, because all the guys are in early recovery, and we had a real good conversation about it. And the new wave is the guys nowadays, I can't speak for women because I don't really work with any women in early recovery, but like dudes do not want to be put on anything. Like, do not put me on a mood stabilizer. I don't need Seroquel. I don't need Depakote. I don't need lithium. I don't need Librium. I don't need any of that shit. I don't need,
Stay away. Miss me with that shit.
Because it's so, the overprescribing of, like some dudes simply have, an anxiety disorder and then they end up with like 10 milligrams of Zyprexa and they can't wake up before noon because they're taking medicine that's really used to treat schizophrenia. And, there's no balance.
When I checked myself into a psych ward, so I hadn't even been diagnosed with PTSD yet. I'm searching. I keep having these breakdowns, and they were sporadically. I didn't drink consistently. I didn't abuse myself consistently, but I kept having these breakdowns. And I sought out AA. I sought out NA for no reason because it was 12-step, and I said, okay, but I wasn't abusing anything like that. I'm like, well, let me check this out. I was looking for anything that could give me some direction. Finally, it came to a head in 2013, and I checked myself into a psych ward. And that's the first time I've ever had the patterns in my life explained to me. So he said, no, what you're experiencing are emotional flashbacks. You have PTSD, and at first is denial. That's bullshit. That's for veterans. I've never been in war. Well, tell me about your childhood. So we went through the whole thing. You have severe PTSD, and it's the first time it's ever been broke down to me. So he said, well, do you feel depression? I said, no, I don't. He said, well, you don't seem depressed. I'm like, I'm not. I'm genuinely optimistic, and I just have these moments where I collapse. I go into, and now I know it's fight, flight, freeze, or collapse. I did one of the four.
Yeah.
Brain state. Now I know. But he said, okay, well, you don't seem depressed. I'm not. Okay, well, I'm going to write you this, and I'm going to write you this, and we're going to see how that works. And I can't. It started with an L. I said, what's this? He said, that's an antidepressant. I said, I'm not depressed. Why are you giving me an antidepressant? Well, let's just try it. He says to me, the guy who's the only person that's spoken intelligently. Let's just try it. And then he gives me this other shit. He said that's for the PTSD, and he combines the two. The one was so severe that I had to have my liver levels tested.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Depakote.
It might have been
Depakote.
Yeah. I was like, what the fuck? And I said, I don't want to take this stuff. And he said, and I checked myself in there, checked myself in. He said, well, if you're going to go against medical advice, we're going to have to take it to the judge. I'm like, I'll take it to the judge. I came here on my own. This was me. He said, well, it's just how it works. And then we had a genuine conversation, kind of a wink, wink. Look, if you go out there, you kill yourself or you kill somebody else, and I wasn't a threat of either, but if you do that, we're liable. I have to give you something. I took it, and the next day, the life was sucked out of me immediately. Like prior to that, I was writing poetry, and I was feeling good that I was on I felt like I was on a path of discovery and whatever. And then I learned that little bit about myself, and when the drugs kicked in, everything that was me was gone. So I went in, and it was the next day or the day after, and I was taking my doses as they prescribed, and I went in, and I said, I don't like who I am on this. I don't feel anything. Like, I don't want this. I'm sitting on my bed, and it made me more depressed. He said, we have to take it, or else we're going to go in front of this. So I wrote out 7 days of it, and I got out, and I remember I left with my prescription. Those things went straight into the garbage. But that's what the bullshit is. I remember saying how bad I felt. He said, give it 30 days. Give it 30 days, your body will adjust. So what the fuck? You want me to addict myself to this stuff?
So what's even interesting now is that they're prescribing that shit to people younger and younger and younger now. So like most your high schoolers, if they have any form of
not listening
or
you move too much and you're
having too many emotions,
stop with that. You're affecting the world around you.
Let's go to CVS, guys. Mommy's got to get your scripts, and then you're already starting the cycle of changing the brain chemistry and
setting them on a path of addiction. From
indentured servitude.
I wrote a poem when I was in there called "Land of the Zombies." One time, it was actually pretty good. It's one of my more clever and really kind of fuck you poems. Like usually there's at the end of most of my stuff, my later stuff, there's a silver lining. I'll talk about the darkness and whatever, and then it'll get to but there's hope kind of thing. That's like this one is just like fuck you, fucking Land of the Zombies. Hey, here's a prescription for all you daddies and mommies. I can't remember.
You know, it was interesting. We did this thing maybe about a month ago in group where it was like play one of the songs that means the most to you, whether it was during your addiction, alcoholism, or before, but something that resonates with you. You know, and
I'm listening. I'm gonna learn to Land of the Zombies.
It was off of Pink Floyd, The Wall. It was the Verdict, and the entire room was just like, because it's all about like these judges and parliament and banging gaffles because the guy's having feelings.
What?
You know, they're judging him. They're passing this judgment on Pink, you know, for having feelings.
I don't remember that.
It was one of my. The Wall was probably one of my
You
greatest.
see what psychedelics can do?
Yeah, that was probably like one of my greatest tripping albums when I was in high school. Like I would just put that on. I would watch the movie. I could relate, you know. I could always relate to Pink Floyd, that particular whole thing. It was like when you're going through high school and like, you know, even as you get older, like there was that one song, Run. He's like, I want to go home, take off this uniform and leave the show. And it's all about like just
getting out of the Matrix, man.
Getting out of the Matrix. Like I just want to like tear this fucking mask off because I hate you fucks, and like I just need to be around my own people.
Yeah.
You know, like he's been putting on this facade, and like he can no longer live this life of like artificial bullshit. And he just wants to just be free and let his emotions be raw and have feelings and get out of my mind, you know.
And that's what it does. It takes you straight out of your mind into this place that, and I'm speaking from my experience, and I did enough to go there, right? Because the first time I tried the DMT, I did enough to feel funny, you know, because I was scared. I didn't really know what it was going to do. So I was scared of this thing that I heard can just take me somewhere, and maybe I don't want to go. So there's all these things. So I did enough. I'm like, oh, I'm going somewhere, but I'm still conscious. And then when I took it in, gone. Mike Tyson was on Joe Rogan too, and he was talking about his experience with DMT. He's like, you know, I'm sitting there, and at first I'm like, no, and I'm looking at the guy going, get me off this, stop this shit right now. And the guy's like, you got to go for the ride. And he's like, I'm like, no, yeah. You know, and that's what I think. That's what life can be. You know,
It changed Mike a lot.
You listen to that guy talk, and you know what a killer he was back in the day, and how peaceful he's. And the thing is, it's not something you're going to continuously go back to because there's no benefit to it. The benefit is in the veil piercing. So you get to the other side, or the truth, which is what it felt like to me. And anybody can argue this, and they all have their own experience. But you get to the truth. You can't deny the truth anymore. Your life begins to change. It takes on a new meaning. It's not so serious over here. You know, we take things so fucking serious, like traffic and needing to be there in 5-10 minutes, and it's not that serious. We abuse ourselves.
I think it's humans. They have the ability to put massive amounts of pressure on ourselves.
We had a mastermind last night, and I was talking about a quote that I love, and I don't know who said it, where it comes from, maybe multiple people, but if somebody talked to you the way you talk to you, how long would that person be in your life?
I would have no friends.
You know what I'm saying?
I would have no friends.
No
one would ever want to go out to dinner with me. No one would
pressure.
want to work out with me. I wouldn't.
And we don't talk to other people like that. We just talk to ourselves like that. And that's all up here.
I think if I treated myself with the same love and compassion as I treat other human beings, like, I don't know,
it might be Jesus.
It would be different. I would be different. But like I put pressure on myself, and
So do I.
you know, because like I want to be, you know, and I don't ever want to feel. I think the pressure is like so that I'm not ever seen as incompetent.
Right, and that goes back to that's down there in the amygdala. It's that fear based. I guess in summation, again, disclaimer, just speaking of our own experience, and now that medical science is starting to embrace this, I think it's going to be a topic that's discussed, and too many people have done it and experienced it now in a deep, meaningful way for it to be bullshit. I think it's something that we'll revisit. Maybe we'll get some guests in here that can take us,
Yeah.
take us on a deeper journey. It's a highly interesting subject. I know personally what it did for me. I also know that there's a danger to it if your mind's not in the right place. But if something exists out there that, again, therapists for years and years and years of my life could not lead me to the breakthrough that ketamine experience did, shattered everything. All that I thought I was shattered in an instant. And that's not to say I changed immediately because I'm still on the path of discovery, but at least it pushed me there. And there was no amount of yap that could do it for me.
All I have to
In
say
1
is,
minute.
if any of you guys watch this podcast and have questions, David Olson's got a lot of information on it. There's a lot of information on microdosing and stuff. So don't jump the gun, you know. But I'm glad we had this. We brought this subject to light, and you know, just remember to continue to work on yourself. You know, it's breaking away the bricks to being my true self and my spiritual self is really the essence of what my higher power wants.
Touche. It's the human condition. Keep the comments coming, the messages, and show ideas, and we'll keep coming back at you. Thank you.